to that.
They're sick. So it's just amazing because they draw a lot of attention. So it makes it easier on us, our role players, to find our groove and get our offense going as well. But also too, just like on the defense side, like we got to make sure that we're handling our business and helping them as well.
What would it mean if one of them was named MVP? I know their names are floated out there with that race.
I mean, we're gonna be ecstatic. I mean, I think they deserve it, both of them. I mean, nobody wants to be cold, but hey, I'm gonna throw it out there. It's hard for them, so it'll be amazing just to have them because they definitely do deserve it.
Ty Harris just walked straight into the most uncomfortable question on the Indiana Fever roster and somehow gave the perfect answer. Caitlin Clark or Kelsey Mitchell for MVP. Ty basically said, why choose? And what sounds like a harmless teammate answer actually exposes the biggest problem voters may have when they fill out that ballot.
I mean, they're amazing. Sometimes when I watch them, I posted a picture the other day, like my face was like
so that face.
That reaction tells you what this Fever backcourt looks like from inside the building. Harris isn't watching two players simply put up good numbers. She's watching possessions where the defense has to make a decision before Indiana even attacks. Load up on Clark and Mitchell gets room. Chase Mitchell around the perimeter, and suddenly Clark has another opening to manipulate the floor. But there's another layer to this MVP conversation that matters a lot more than whether Harris was serious about co-MVPs. Because eventually voters have to decide whether having another elite teammate strengthens your case or actually hurts it. And when we get to the numbers Clark is producing as a scorer and creator at the same time, that's where this debate gets much harder.
To that.
They're sick. So it's just amazing because they draw a lot of attention. So it makes it easier on us, our role players, to find our groove and get our offense going as well. But also too, just like on the defense side, like we got to make sure that we're handling our business and helping them.
Listen carefully to what Harris says there about attention. That may be the most important basketball point in this entire discussion. Stars don't only create value when they score. Sometimes their value is visible in where the other four defenders are standing. If two players are attracting so much attention that role players are consistently finding cleaner opportunities, then the effect stretches beyond the box score. Harris gets more comfortable. Shooters get better looks. Cutters see open lanes. Defenders have to rotate earlier than they want to. That creates an interesting MVP paradox. Mitchell and Clark benefit from playing beside each other. Absolutely. But they are also the reason everybody else benefits. And this is why comparing teammates can get ugly fast. People start treating production like a pie. If Mitchell scores efficiently, somehow that has to take something away from Clark. If Clark creates 10 assists, somehow that has to diminish Mitchell. Basketball doesn't work that way. Sometimes two elite offensive players multiply each other's impact because the defense simply can't solve both problems at once.
That long ago and said she's just the MVP about Kelsey Mitchell.
I'm not sure how much more you can say, but when you see Kelsey, who already is one of the best scorers in the world, get to this level, what does that say about her work ethic and the way she's playing?
Yeah, Kelsey comes in here and she works every day. I mean, she gets up extra shots. She just comes in and does what she needs to do. And I think, honestly, she's really just the MVP. Like, I think that's just what she's been doing.
Now that was Aliyah Boston talking about Kelsey Mitchell, and this is where the conversation briefly became more interesting than it probably needed to be. Boston said Mitchell was really just the MVP. If you isolate that sentence, you can turn it into teammate versus teammate drama immediately. But context matters. She was answering a question specifically about Mitchell. She talked about the extra shots, the daily work, and what Kelsey has done for Indiana. That's a teammate praising another teammate, not necessarily Boston announcing that Clark has no case. Still, this is exactly how MVP season works. Every sentence gets pulled apart because voters, fans, and media members are looking for some clean way to separate candidates who aren't making separation easy. Mitchell's argument is particularly dangerous because it is simple. She scores. She does it constantly. She does it efficiently. And she does it while defenses know exactly what she's trying to do. There isn't much ambiguity there. But Boston later got another chance to answer the broader question, and that response showed why Ty Harris wasn't just dodging anything.
I think if you look at the numbers that they're putting out, both C and Kels, I feel like it's clear. I mean, teams guard them differently. They're sending everyone, they're throwing junk defenses. I mean, ball pressure is so different, and they still consistently put up these numbers. So I feel like there's not really much of a campaign. I feel like when you just look at the numbers and you look at the way teams guard, it's clear.
That's the better frame. Don't start with which teammate deserves more credit. Start with what defenses are being forced to do, because both of them are on the floor. Boston mentions junk defenses, pressure, different coverages, extra bodies. That matters because raw scoring totals don't tell you how difficult those points are to generate. And this is where Mitchell's season becomes ridiculous. According to the numbers discussed here, she's hitting 45.5% from three, while taking the kind of attempts that usually destroy efficiency. These aren't just stationary corner threes where somebody forgets to rotate. We're talking step-backs, snatchbacks, movement shots and attempts created under pressure. She is also over 50% from the floor. For a high-volume perimeter scorer, those two numbers together are devastating. Efficiency usually falls as difficulty and volume rise. That's one of the basic trade-offs in basketball. The more responsibility you carry, the more late clock possessions you inherit, the more defensive attention you see, the harder it becomes to maintain elite percentages. Mitchell has been challenging that trade-off. And that's why anybody trying to dismiss her case because Clark is the bigger playmaker is missing what makes Kelsey special. Mitchell's job isn't to imitate Clark. Her value is that she can bend a possession toward one conclusion. Somebody has to stop her from putting the ball in the basket. The problem for opponents is that selling out to do that creates an entirely different emergency.
Kelsey Mitchell has been so consistent all season long that it's really remarkable. And when you look at the shooting numbers that Kelsey Mitchell has put up, that's the other thing that really stands out. It's absurd, the efficiency that she's scoring at, considering how many shots she's taking, the difficulty of shots she's taking, and the volume of shots that she is taking. But she is currently number one in the WNBA in three-point percentage. Number one. And that's, with step back, snatch back threes, 45.5% from three for Kelsey Mitchell. She's shooting over 50% from the floor.
That is the cleanest version of Mitchell's MVP argument. Consistency plus efficiency plus difficulty. Not one hot week. Not a small shooting sample. A season of defenses knowing the assignment and still failing to solve it. And think about what that does psychologically to an opponent. When a scorer is making difficult shots at an average rate, coaches can live with some of them. When she's making difficult shots at elite efficiency, the entire game plan starts changing. You blitz earlier. You top-lock actions. You send help farther away from the rim. You become willing to concede something elsewhere because allowing that scorer to operate normally is no longer acceptable. That's when one superstar starts creating opportunities for another before the pass even happens. Which brings us to Clark, because her MVP case is built on a different kind of pressure. Mitchell forces you to defend the end of a possession. Clark forces you to defend the geometry of the entire possession.
Needed it. Now, on the other side, Caitlin Clark is the one who is making the plays for herself and for others, right? Like, that is the distinction there, is Clark is leading the league in assists, as well as scoring the buckets that she scores. And that's where she makes a difference out on the floor, really, compared to almost anybody. I mean, Olivia Miles is probably the only player I would even put on her, in her dimension as a playmaker, but, Clark also has that scoring prowess and the fact that she can stretch you all the way out to the outside from the logo, the fact that she's drawing all that defensive attention. She's gotten better defensively this year.
That's the dividing line. Clark isn't only trying to beat the first defender, she's reading what happens after the first defender gets beaten. Where's the tag coming from? Did the weak side defender step in? Is the big showing high? Did somebody leave the corner? Can she hit the roller? Can she throw it behind the defense? Can she create her own shot instead? That is why assist production changes this MVP comparison so dramatically. A scorer can punish one coverage. A truly elite playmaker can punish the adjustment to the coverage. And Clark brings enough scoring gravity that opponents can't simply turn her into a passer and declare victory. Back off and she has range. Crowd her and she can attack. Send extra attention and now you're letting one of the league's best passers play 4-on-3 basketball behind the trap. Then add the defensive improvement mentioned in the source, plus better field goal and three-point percentages, plus the development in the mid-range and relocation game. That's important, because MVP conversations often become frozen snapshots. People decide what a player is early in her career, and then keep arguing against that old version even after the player changes. If Clark has become more efficient while carrying that creation burden, that's not cosmetic development. That's removing some of the exact answers defenses previously hoped they could live with. And notice how differently Mitchell and Clark create pressure. Mitchell can make the defense panic because the shot is going in. Clark can make the defense panic because nobody knows which shot is about to appear. That difference is going to matter when voters compare them to the rest of the league.
So they've both been absolutely fantastic, which makes it hard in the voting process because you're going to have people using one against the other. Mainly, they'll use Kelsey against Caitlin in the arguments, especially because it's really down to those two. I would say A'ja Wilson and Aliyah Miles.
And now the MVP debate expands beyond Indiana. A'ja Wilson is in the conversation. Aliyah Miles is in the conversation. And the central problem for Clark and Mitchell becomes obvious. Two fever candidates may end up being used as evidence against one another. That's where the logic gets strange. Imagine voter number 1 saying Clark can't be MVP because Mitchell is too valuable. Then voter number 2 says Mitchell can't be MVP because Clark creates so many of her team's opportunities. If enough people apply both arguments, Indiana could theoretically be punished for having 2 extraordinary players instead of 1. That doesn't mean either should automatically win. A'ja Wilson's case has to be judged on its own merits, and so does Miles. MVP isn't supposed to become a team award disguised as an individual trophy, but she has a great teammate can't be the end of the analysis either. The question should be replacement of impact. What changes when this player controls the game? What problems does she create that opponents can't reproduce in normal coverage? How much of the team's identity exists because of what she uniquely does? That's where Clark's statistical profile becomes difficult to ignore, because some of the combinations being discussed aren't merely elite for this season. They're unusual historically.
Asia's been the favorite all year, as deservedly so. I mean, she's had an incredible year, but as she always seems to be. Caitlin is the one who's putting up these stats that have, like, I mean, to be fair, Kelsey's also put up stats that have never been seen, 20-plus points, however many straight games it is now. Caitlin's been putting up those stats that no one's ever seen before. Or that the 30-point, 10-assist one is the one that really hammers it home when you think of the fact that she's got 5 30-point and 10-assist games. This is for her career, but that's more than all of WNBA history combined. That's just one snapshot of the absurd numbers that she's putting up. No one's ever been top 3 in scoring and led the league in assists before.
And there is the part that makes the Clark argument different. 5 career games with at least 30 points and 10 assists, described here as more than the rest of WNBA history combined. That's not a normal star player stat. 30 points tells you a player dominated possessions as a scorer. 10 assists tells you she was simultaneously manufacturing offense for teammates. Combining both means the defense spent the night trying to force her into one role and couldn't. Take away the shot, she creates the pass. Take away the pass, she scores. Try to split the difference and she makes the read. And then there's another potential benchmark mentioned in the source. Finishing top 3 in scoring while leading the league in assists. Something the speaker says nobody has done before. That's where the MVP question gets more complicated than simply asking who scores the most points. If a player can rank among the very best scorers while also creating more assisted baskets than anybody else, her offensive footprint is enormous. But this is also where you have to be careful. Historic combinations are powerful evidence. They are not an automatic MVP certificate. Awards aren't supposed to be handed out because somebody discovered the coolest statistical filter. Context still matters. Winning matters. Efficiency matters. Defense matters. Availability matters. The quality of competing candidates matters, and that's exactly why Mitchell shouldn't disappear from this conversation, just because Clark's all-around numbers are easier to turn into history graphics. Mitchell presents almost the opposite case. Her numbers aren't impressive because they're complicated. They're impressive because opponents know what is coming, and still haven't been able to reduce her efficiency. One player overwhelms you with breadth, the other overwhelms you with precision. Now we finally get to the real reason Ty Harris's co-MVP joke feels more logical than it initially sounded.
But really, it was just the right response from Ty Harris. It's worth playing again because she handled it so perfectly, right? Like, what a great teammate Ty Harris has proven to be.
I think they deserve it, both of them. I mean, nobody wants to be cold, but hey, I'm going to throw it out there. It's hard for them, so it'll be amazing just to have them because they definitely deserve it.
Harris handled it perfectly because she refused the premise that supporting one teammate requires taking anything away from the other. And that sounds obvious, but look at how sports debates usually operate. We want hierarchy. We want one person at number one and somebody else underneath. We want the clean graphic, the clean argument, the clean winner. Indiana's backcourt doesn't give you a clean argument. Mitchell's scoring can make Clark more dangerous because defenders can't devote every resource to Clark. Clark's passing can make Mitchell more dangerous because Mitchell can attack advantages before the defense gets organized again. The interaction matters. That's why they're both great isn't enough. The deeper point is that they create conditions for each other's greatness without simply manufacturing empty numbers for one another. If Clark were piling up assists by making basic passes to Mitchell while Mitchell hit impossible contested shots every possession, you'd discount some of that creation. If Mitchell were only scoring because teams completely abandoned her to chase Clark, you'd discount some of Mitchell's scoring. But that's not the picture being described. Mitchell is taking difficult, high-volume shots at elite percentages. Clark is creating for herself and everybody else while seeing concentrated defensive attention. Both players are independently forcing reactions. Together, those reactions collide. That is why Harris calls life easier for the role players. When two defenders are worried about Clark and another defender can't lose Mitchell, suddenly somebody else is operating in space that didn't exist before. That doesn't mean they literally deserve to split an MVP trophy. It means the usual attempt to subtract one from the other may be backwards.
And if there ever was going to be a co-MVP situation, I mean, again, on principle, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but if there ever was going to be one, this obviously makes sense considering the two are helping each other in the backcourt and what they're doing on a night in and night out.
This is where I land on the co-MVP idea. Could it happen in principle? Sure. Shared MVP awards have happened in major American sports before. The source points to the NFL as precedent. Should voters go into this trying to manufacture a tie? No. An MVP ballot should still force people to make a decision based on the season in front of them. But if your argument against Clark begins and ends with she has Kelsey Mitchell, that's weak. And if your argument against Mitchell begins and ends with Clark is the engine, that's weak too. You have to explain what each player actually does. Mitchell's case is based on devastating scoring efficiency at huge volume and difficult shot quality. Clark's is based on combining elite scoring with league-leading playmaking, extreme range, defensive attention, and offensive creation that can affect all five players. Then there are candidates outside Indiana who may provide cleaner individual cases precisely because they don't share the spotlight with another teammate putting up MVP-level production. That's the fascinating part. What should happen if two players on the same team are both legitimately among the best performers in the league? Do voters evaluate each in isolation? Do they account for how much easier each makes the other's job? Do they view that relationship as a positive because it produces winning basketball, or as a reason to give somebody elsewhere more individual credit? There isn't a mathematically perfect answer. But there is one principle that should be non-negotiable. Don't punish great basketball because it doesn't fit a convenient narrative. If Mitchell is destroying coverage, credit Mitchell. If Clark is manipulating that coverage and creating offense everywhere, credit Clark. If Aja Wilson or Olivia Miles builds the stronger total case, credit them. Start with impact and work backward. Don't choose a winner first and then search for whichever teammate argument makes the result sound cleaner. And there's one more reason this debate could get even more difficult before voters ever submit those ballots.
Out bases. My favorite stock line has kind of been, it's a pick your poison situation, and whichever one you choose, you're going to die because they are both potent bucket combinations. They do it in different ways. Obviously, Kelsey is like wired to go right at the rim, right at the basket, score, set to kill, while Caitlin is can do that and can make sure everybody else eats at the same time.
Pick your poison is the right phrase, but I would take it one step further. This isn't really about choosing which player gets to hurt you. It's about choosing which structure of your defense you're willing to break. Against Mitchell, you have to survive a scorer who is wired to attack. Every hesitation matters. Lose contact around one action and she has daylight. Give her a mismatch and she can hunt it. Defend the first move and she may still create enough separation for the shot. Against Clark, your problem begins farther away from the basket. You have to decide how high you're willing to defend, how aggressively you're willing to help, and what you're willing to leave open behind that help. Those are different threats, which is why the partnership is so difficult to simplify. And now go back to Ty Harris's answer. At first it sounds like diplomacy. She's sitting beside two MVP candidates and doesn't want to choose between friends. But after looking at how those players actually function together, her answer starts sounding almost like basketball analysis. Why choose between the two threats when opposing defenses don't get to choose? They have to deal with both. That's the payoff in this whole conversation. The strongest argument for Clark isn't that Mitchell should be minimized. The strongest argument for Mitchell isn't that Clark's creation should be ignored. Their cases become more impressive when you understand how differently each one bends the same defense. Now, the actual MVP winner still has to be one name, unless voters somehow create a tie. And once you widen the ballot beyond Indiana, A'ja Wilson and Olivia Miles make this a league-wide argument, not a fever popularity contest. So if you're voting strictly on individual value, where are you going? Is Caitlin Clark's combination of scoring and historically unusual playmaking enough to put her first? Does Kelsey Mitchell's outrageous efficiency and scoring consistency deserve the edge? Or does having two MVP-level players on the same roster push you toward A'ja Wilson, Olivia Miles, or somebody else? You have to pick one. Clark, Mitchell, Wilson, Miles, or another name entirely. Drop your choice in the comments. Tell me the one reason that decides it for you. And if you like these fever and WNBA breakdowns, hit like and subscribe because this race is only getting harder to separate.